And welcome to the Pharaonic Village. This was the inspiration of Dr. Hassan Ragab, who wanted to recreate an ancient Egyptian village on the banks of the Nile with as authentic an environment as possible. The village is surrounded by an extensive papyrus plantation, which not only reproduces the ancient surroundings, but also, along with the hundreds of trees which were planted around the village, provides an effective screen to isolate this glimpse of Egypt's ancient past from sights and sounds of modern life. The Pharaonic Village covers an area of 32 acres, where people dressed in the clothes of ancient times perform their daily tasks in agriculture, industry, religious affairs and home life, using replicas of the tools and instruments of the ancient Egyptians. When Dr. Abdus-Salam Ragab took over the village from his father, he expanded it with 10 special museums, covering such varied subjects as mummification, ancient boats, the Coptic and Islamic periods, and the life of President Nasser. Dr. Abdus-Salam has made the Pharaonic Village into an open book on Egyptian history and culture. You are about to take a voyage back in time to the land of the pharaohs 4,000 years ago. Between the trees is a statue of the Roman god Milos, the personification of the river Nile. Milos rests his arm on the Sphinx, symbol of Egypt's great antiquity, and is attended by crocodiles which were found in the Nile in ancient times. The children surrounding the god represent the new life and fertility brought to the land by the annual flood. First of all, we will enter the Canal of Mythology, where there are statues of some of the principal gods and pharaohs of ancient times. The plant growing in the water here is papyrus, which was used by the ancient Egyptians for making paper. The modern name actually comes from the name of the plant. Papyrus grew abundantly in Egypt and rediscovered the art after many years of research. Papyrus was also used for making boats, mats and sandals, and the lower part of the stem was sometimes eaten as a vegetable. The papyrus plant was the symbol of Lower Egypt, the northern part of the country, while the lotus flower was the symbol of Upper Egypt. As well as being prized for its perfume, the lotus symbolized resurrection to the ancient Egyptians, because the flower opens when the life-giving sun is out and closes when the sun sets. Eternity was usually shown as a mummy, his flesh colored green or black. According to the legend of Osiris, he was a king of Egypt who was foully murdered by his brother Seth, who was jealous of Osiris' popularity. Seth tore Osiris' body into 14 pieces, which he scattered throughout Egypt. Isis, Osiris' faithful wife, searched the country for the pieces of her husband's body, and then brought him back to life, after which she conceived her son Horus, who was eventually to avenge his father's murder. Her son Horus on her knee. Isis was worshipped all over Egypt as a mother goddess, who typified the faithful wife and devoted mother. In the early centuries AD, the correspondence of the earliest was area of space, with the sun and moon as their divine. Later he was regarded as the son of Isis and Osiris, who avenged his father's death by fighting with his uncle Seth on the throne of Egypt. After many years of conflict, Horus was at last triumphant. become the Israelites queen of Egypt, origins water become enough. After Pharaoh's death, the Egyptians turned to the old religion, during which the successor Tutankhamen, who was probably a son. Later pharaohs tried to wipe out all traces of God's existence. And not long reign the ancient Egyptians. As he was pharaoh for 67 years, in the 5th year of his reign, he fought to break down the hasty cuts of the Lord's Syria. The backward decisive, both sides lay victories, but it is certain that Ramses does no courage, so the Egyptians solid defeat. 60 years later, the Jews signed peace treaty with the Chinese and Ramses II, which was the first recorded peace treaty in world history. The fate of Ramses II is the temple and city of Aswan. This magnificent building is famous for all its heritage. The fact entirely lost. Now that the ancient Egyptians are received by the peninsula, the locals are enjoying pleasure in the Pharaoh's rule. They played the angle cinema, game took place, before which the Pharaoh was forged. Now it is first updated very land foundation, and here is the town we can see which is built in town. Occupied by heavy convoy of local folk, and they close on the before they left. The first residency was small and prosperous, the chief follows them, the first city was built up over their feet. The right house is background of Egypt town. The Egyptians split villages too, and many of the carry messages to send to the monks. The people connected by the Egyptian was by the mountain, and the monks were and then served country. The Egyptians are still not used in the Egyptian town. Then raised the chief of American people, connected by the mountain. Over their range, spent on several floors, often held on their ground to build up the way to their feet. And there is a river, the wind comes to them, so the light chapel is the way representing the people in silence. Time makes a weapon of range to be small. This is important for
इस पे पपायास के जो प्लांट है उसकी जो टहनियाँ हैं उनको काट कर
Money was used for scapegoating by the ancient Egyptians, as sugarcane was not grown in Egypt in those days. Beehives were made of pottery tubes piled up as rows, and in some parts of the country, beehives are still made this way today. The River Nile was the main highway of communication in Pharaonic times, so boat building was an important industry. Small boats were made of bundles of papyrus tied together with ropes. Such boats were used for short journeys and for fishing or hunting trips. Larger boats were made of wood, usually cedar wood imported from Lebanon. Wooden boats were pegged together with dowels and sewn together with ropes, as can be seen in the cross-section on the back. When the boat was put into the water, the wood expanded and the rope shrank, so the boat became completely watertight.
बनाते हैं
A royal boat of this type can be seen in the museum beside the Great Pyramid of King Cheops at Giza.
जिसमें ये पेंट करते हैं
The
तस्वीरें
palm
बनाते
tree
हैं
was a valuable resource for the Egyptians. The trunk was used in house building, and the branches provided fronds for making mats and baskets, while furniture and boxes were made from the ribs. The boxes were used for storage and as cages for small animals and birds. The Egyptians today still use the various parts of the palm tree for the same purposes. There were many different kinds of fish in the Nile and its canals which made good food, and fishing was also popular as a sport. One method of fishing can be seen here, where a net is stretched between two boats, and the fisherman hits the water with a stick to frighten the fish into the net. Let's see if he's been lucky today. Of some industries and crafts, the first of which is brickmaking. The material used is the Nile mud, which is mixed with water and chopped straw into a thick paste. This paste is put into a wooden mould, and the bricks are then simply left to dry in the sun. As there is little heavy rain in Egypt, these mud bricks can last for centuries. The houses of the ancient Egyptians, even the palaces of the pharaohs, were constructed of sun-dried mud brick. The roof was made of split palm trunks covered with branches. The building was covered with a thick layer of mud, which acted as insulation against heat, wind, and rain. Glass watchmaking was introduced into Egypt after the military campaigns of Tutmosis III about 1450 BC, when captive glassmakers were brought here from Syria. Glass was used for making beads, inlays, amulets and small vessels, which were formed around a core, as glass blowing was not invented until the 1st century BC. In Ptolemaic times, Alexandria became a centre of glass craftsmanship, and in the Roman period, fine cameos were produced in the same city. The Egyptians are also famous for mummifying their dead. Mummification is basically dehydration, and to speed up this process, the internal organs of the body were removed and preserved separately. The body was dried out by being covered with natron salt, a form of soda found in the deserts of Egypt. The body was then cleaned and embalmed and wrapped in several layers of linen bandages. Amulets were put between the bandages to protect the mummy from harm. The whole process took 70 days. Pottery making is one of the oldest crafts in Egypt, dating back to about 6000 BC. The clay is kneaded with water and mixed with ground potsherds or chopped straw, which helps the finished pot to dry evenly without cracking. The potter forms the pot with his fingers as he kicks the wheel round with his foot. The handles are added afterwards, and the pot is dried in the sun for a while before being fired. Now for a little Egyptian magic. This scene shows the different stages in decorating a stone wall. First of all, the surface is levelled, then smoothed and polished with a piece of hard stone. Grid lines are marked in red on the prepared surface to ensure accurate enlargements of the original drawings. The artist copies the outline onto the wall, working from the sketch made by the chief artist on a small slab of stone or a piece of papyrus. Then the sculptor carves the design in relief with his mallet and chisel. Finally, the details would be painted in colour to make the picture look as realistic as possible. Statues were partially carved in the quarry where the stone for them was cut. First of all, the block of stone is separated from the rock base by hammering wooden wedges into holes cut in the rock. The wedges are soaked with water, and as the wood expands, the block breaks away. After the stone has been smoothed and polished, the profile of the work is outlined on one side, and then the sculptor carves out the figure, rounding it off first on the front and then on the back. Vases were made from various kinds of stone, particularly alabaster, a soft stone which was worked into beautiful designs. After the rough piece of alabaster has been polished smooth, the inside is hollowed out with a drill with a flint or copper bit. The vase is sunk into the ground to prevent cracking during drilling. Alabaster vases were used as lamps and for storing perfumes and precious oils. The tools of the carpenter and joiner were made of copper, wood and bronze. On the left, a man is sawing a log of wood into planks. Other tools used were a hammer, chisel, an adze and a bow drill for boring holes. important to the pharaohs that the army was well equipped at all times. Weapons included bows and arrows, swords, battle axes and spears, as well as shields and throw sticks. The horse-drawn war chariot was introduced into Egypt by the Hyksos from Western Asia around 1700 BC. Perfumes were very popular in ancient Egypt and consisted chiefly of fragrant oils and fats. The juice is extracted from sweet-smelling flowers in a bag of heavy canvas, the ends of which are twisted in opposite directions with wooden bars. This scented extract is then mixed with oil or fat as a base. Linen made from the flax plant was used by the Egyptians for clothing and many other purposes. Bundles of flax stalks are pulled through a large wooden comb to remove the tops and leaves. The stalks are soaked in water for a few days to soften them and then beaten with a wooden mallet. They are then pulled through a smaller comb to separate the fibers from the outer woody covering, and the good fibers are picked out and spun into thread on a spindle. The fine linen thread is then woven into cloth on a loom. The earliest looms in Egypt were horizontal, and the upright loom was brought to this country by the Hyksos. Another important industry was papyrus paper making, for which the government had the monopoly. The lowest part of the stem is the best part for paper making. The outer green rind is peeled off and the white pith is sliced into thin strips which are soaked in water. After repeated soaking, the now pliable strips are placed on a piece of cloth in two layers, one vertical and one horizontal. The surface of the sheet thus formed is then hammered with a wooden mallet to cause the fibers of the two layers to stick together. The sheet is then covered with another piece of cloth and pressed between two heavy stones for several days. During that time it also dries out in the hot sun and the piece of paper is ready for use. Good wine was appreciated in Pharaonic times, and this scene shows the method of winemaking. Bunches of ripe grapes are taken to the vat where the grapes are trodden out, and the juice extracted is poured into large pottery jars to ferment. When this process is complete, the jars are sealed with a clay seal, which is stamped with the date and the name of the vineyard where the grapes were grown.
Let's go.
And he's standing here to ask him for his permission to Allah for us to go in.
Yeah.
So please ask him for his permission.
Can you grant us a permission to visit the house?
But he speaks Pharaonic.
Pharaonic, okay. Next time I can learn and I come back. Can you speak Pharaonic?
Pharaonic?
Yeah.
Yes.
You can? Okay.
No, just joking. So, I think the entrance is like the first open hall. This is for common people, and another one for rich, and the last one for the king and high priest. Three sections for all the different types of religion. This is another goddess, I mean the one in the middle. On the middle, this is another goddess, together, like a lady with the two ears of cow, sometimes a lady with the head of cow. This is like another symbolizing for the love, beauty, motherhood, and two things like the lady and the cow, and it's called goddess Hat or goddess of love, beauty, and motherhood in ancient Egypt. From this way, we're going to see another one. This is the backyard of the house. You have seen the front part, and this is the backyard of the house. And the backyard of the house, some other rooms used to make this one for servants and very small in size, and the bed is different from the thing we have seen inside from the other man. The kitchen was moved for back space and the smoke to go out, but it was always used. This is for back another one for cooking. This is the top ovens that feels like ancient Egyptian. Last one here is this table, all the horses room. So, what's the other thing? People talking about the places of who people moved from market. The ancient Egyptian didn't have money at that time. So when they go to the market, they used to trade things by another piece. Like one part of the market system, they get something with another something. So they have money. Anyway, the money that we have by the terms, the beats. This is for Persians' houses. Farmers, workers. The house is very, very small in size, made of mud, only one room for all the family to live. And they use the stones here for grinding the wheat, making flour, and this flour used for baking bread by using their hands like this. But how do you make fire? We're going to see with the owner himself.
So you will be making food for us?
Okay.
Did you see the same girl was there?
No, different one. And now we're going to see how the ancient Egyptian make fire. You look So now we will see how the ancient Egyptian used to make fire.
I can make like this too.
You can do? Okay, just try.
I have real different way of doing it, but there's these people in it doesn't work out how to make a fire. From the stone I don't know what we got there.
Fire like the ancient Egyptian used.
You got something going on there.
Right, this is a magic. The big question, but in the first take long time, like 20 minutes to make it. Like this. And then I got the fire from here, it's also ready for eating. And at the back, 2 grains of size, nothing more except this only one room. You know the name of this flower? Lotus.
Yeah.
Lotus. The real one itself. Yeah. From the morning, all of them open to the sun, sunset, they wanted the sun to back again to open. Some of them closed because now we're going to the sunset. Sunrise in the morning, they open again with 3 colors we have, white, yellow, and purple, all of them like this. So it was a symbol of resurrection because it's called that means life and death by this flower. Sometimes this flower is used for perfumes and precious oils. And some of them used for rich ladies. Yes, as we have a picture here showing. Yes, please.
You can make like this. What do you make?
You can wear and get pictures like Pharaoh's queens, kings.
Oh, okay.
Let's go for us. I think Egyptian prices.
Egyptian bottom.
So this is like the first gift shop with the different souvenirs. Most of them is handmade here in the village. We have some handmade bags for We're wearing the boat now, and here in the village we have the plant itself. So the ancient Egyptian used to do. The ancient Egyptian used to get the plant and remove the outer part, and the inner one or the inner fibers, they used to cut it and put it as a vertical and horizontal pieces. And then they press over them, right? This is a fake or a normal one, just from this, the points or from the vertical and horizontal steps. If the vertical and horizontal steps was like one cut with no vertical and horizontal line, that means this is a fake one. But here you can see by yourself the vertical and horizontal one. So this is like 1, 2, 3, 4 as a vertical, and this is as a horizontal. So that means this is the plant, the natural plant itself. It's not the fake one. The fake one is like one piece. You cannot notice the vertical and the horizontal one. So if you got one fake, just put it like this in the right. You see it's like one piece with no vertical and horizontal line.
तो जी हम आए हैं पपायास के शॉप पर। उसकी जो लकड़ी होती है उसका छिलका उतार कर उस पर लिखा जाता है और फिर उस पे उसको ड्राई किया जाता है और उसके बाद इन पे लिखा जाता है और ये सारा बनाया जाता है। यहाँ पे पपायास का जो है ना ट्री, उसको जैसे यहाँ इस मशीन से बनाया जाता है, फिर उसको ड्राई किया जाता है ट्रीज़ को। ये देखें,
pieces. We can cut it
ये
and
जो-
put it as a vertical and horizontal pieces, as I said for you. We have the plant and we have the workers, and they used to make it like this.
इसको
To
इस
put it
तरह
as a
से-
vertical and horizontal straps, like this, one place to the others, and then they cover with another piece of cloth. And here we have these machines to press over them. After pressing over them, so it will be a good to be one piece. And this one is made here just 2 days ago. So 48 hours ago. So we did this one, and we had it in the sun just to get it like this. The first piece that's made from the plant itself. All the papyrus you have is the same. That's why we said this is the cheapest prices, because the worker is here and the plant itself
ओके
anywhere you get.
ओके का ट्री और फूल जिससे ये बनाते हैं.
By the way, man, this is a still yarn. This plant grows to 3 meters,
Yeah.
and then it's cut it, and then they
This
remove
one
the
is
green
papyrus,
part,
yeah,
and then they
yeah.
make it. Anyway, you go here, you will see papyrus.
रिंग
This is the scarab, like worshipped by the ancient
अच्छा
Egyptians.
अच्छा अच्छा
They believed in a god in this thing. They say if you have a wish, you have to make a
Yeah.
around
Hello.
pyramids.
Most of girls come to here to
To go around the
yes, seven.
scarab just to get a luck.
7 round like 7 round.
Around to get a luck.
Why?
This
To
is,
marry.
this is just an old believing by the ancient Egyptians
Oh.
who believe in something like that to get a luck for the people. And sometimes they put the small statues for the scarab in the rooms, and they believed in luck, or they get in luck.
Okay.
But this is just an old believing for things.
Yeah, I got.
As you know.
सो ये जो रखा था अभी स्टोन टाइप का कुछ इनका देवता है या क्या, तो ये इसके चारों तरफ 7 चक्कर मारती हैं ताकि इनकी शादियां जल्दी से हो जाएं.
Muslim, about the other traditions, very important to know. Very important to visit if you have a chance to visit all of them. And especially Saudi Arabia, for holy places. It's very important if you have a
So are
chance
there
to
still
go.
people in Egypt that practice these old religions?
Just we have here Islam and Christianity. So we have 10% Christian and 90% Muslims. 10% is like 10 million history. This is from the ancient Coptic Christian people that when Amr ibn As entered Egypt 642,